Hello, guys. Welcome to your very own channel, the Student Insights Podcast. Welcome to another episode wherein we will be discussing in deep about PhD for states. If you have missed an early episode which we did for UK, that was with my friend Rajkaran Singh. It was also a PhD episode. So up till now, we have mostly got episodes for undergrad and postgrad. But it's the second episode in which we've interviewed a person who's pursuing a PhD, but this time in the States. So make sure to watch the video in the entire length because we've discussed in deep about the specialization that is a PhD, the field or the topic that a person is searching into, and what exactly is it, what was his personal journey into pursuing PhD, what are the factors that made him realize or made this decision to do PhD more concrete? Although he's worked in companies like Infosys and Flipkart, but still, how did he manage or what made him to confirm the decision about doing the PhD? So please make sure to watch the entire episode. Before I begin the episode, please make sure to like, subscribe to our channel, and press the bell notification icon so that you get notified as soon as the next video is uploaded. So make sure to like the channel, subscribe to it, follow it, and do share the word with somebody you think who might benefit from these videos. Also, there have been another episodes of IELTS that I've covered recently. It's a five-part series in which I kind of introduce what the academic section of the IELTS is, what are the four different modules that one has to give, and how can you crack those and get a higher band with some strategies that I learned and I use in my own kind of exam score to put band into it. So please make sure watch them as well or share those with either friends or family whom you think who might benefit from it. So please make sure to like the channel, subscribe it, press the bell notification icon, and also do follow me on Instagram and Facebook. The handle is Student Insights Podcast. Please make sure to follow me there as well because that's where I put in more additional content than these videos. And let's begin this episode. Shubhranshu, welcome to the episode of the podcast from Student Insight Podcasts. Firstly, thanks a lot for coming along and giving your time. It's an approaching weekend, and especially being a PhD student, you could have utilized this in many different ways, but you chose to give it to us. Really appreciate that.
Thanks, Harpreet, for this opportunity. It's no big deal. It's a weekend, so as you rightly said, nice. I'm happy to be here. So thanks.
Exactly. Let's begin. And let's begin with a small introduction about yourself. You could just tell the viewers who you are, what you're doing currently.
Right. So, hi everyone. I am Shubhranshu. I'm a PhD student at Heinz College in Carnegie Mellon University. Before arriving for my PhD, I was working as a data scientist in Flipkart, and even before that, I completed my master's at IIT Madras, and I did my bachelor's from National Institute of Science and Technology, Berhampur in Orissa.
Mm-hmm.
And my entire background is in computer science, and currently my research area is culminated from that computer science background into research into data mining for policy problems in general.
Okay.
So that's a very short, fairly small summary of what I am doing right now.
That's good. That's good. We'll discuss that in the coming time. Definitely, we'll touch on what
Sure.
exactly is your specialization that you're doing. So first, let's reverse it everything. Let's go back to the beginning, when you were trying and
Sure.
looking for, searching for universities and for doing a PhD. So how did you think about getting into the PhD? As you mentioned, you were already working. You had some work experience. So did you have this from the beginning, or was it on the way?
Uh, so to be honest, the decision for doing PhD has been with me uh, much later after my undergrad education. So after my undergrad, I was working with Infosys for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Then I realized that whatever I'm doing or whatever I could do, maybe my knowledge is limiting me in achieving those things. So that's when I decided maybe I should go for master's or more specialized degree, and I tried to pursue MS by research. So MS by research had like so the MS by research at IIT Madras is a slightly different program where it's not course driven, rather it's project or research driven, right? So that gave me a flavor of like what does it mean to uh, learn and try to create new knowledge out there, and that gave me immense satisfaction. But I was even then I was not sure whether I should go for PhD or not. I had applied at that time, but then I was not 100% sure. So I took up a job to at least apply whatever skills I learned there as a data scientist. So it was really useful. But then in the job again, I felt I was not really satisfied with myself in the sense that I wanted to create something. So there is some. So for PhD, the main thing was that like I wanted to pursue like knowledge, and idea was to acquire more knowledge and be able to contribute equally to the research community,
Mhm.
which I was not doing as a data scientist in Flipkart. Mostly, I was doing at that point in time. I was doing like consuming the research but not producing.
Oh,
So that was something I was not really happy about. Only that aspect. Other than that, Flipkart was awesome. so
that's
so in the end, I decided like I saw myself into a research career or research based career, maybe a research lab or a faculty job,
mhm.
and which is where I realized that PhD would be next step for me to go there.
Okay. Okay. So that means you had it on the go while working on the field. You realized you had more potential, but you need some more knowledge to tap into it. So that's why you decided to pursue the PhD path.
Right. So once I decided about my PhD program, so basically that I'll pursue PhD, the criterion for selection of a program was entirely based on the professors, like with whom I'll be working with. So I had three things in my mind. What are the research? Uh, what is the research that a particular professor is pursuing? If whether that inspires me or not. What kind of culture is there in a particular lab, in a professor's lab? And the third thing was whether I would be a good fit into that research area and culture. So that was my whole search criteria, and I didn't care about anything else apart from these three things.
Okay, look, with the very first professors, I believe it's kind of easier to kind of find them from the university websites. But how did you go of kind of confirming some next two factors? What is a group like? What is a culture like? How did you approach these 2 points?
Right. So maybe I'll touch briefly on like finding professors. So for finding professors, like I had in my mind that I'll pursue in data mining and applications of data mining into some social problems and so on. So by that, obviously, I could shortlist professors by going into all different universities. And the other way to shortlist professors was like looking at latest publication,
Okay.
whichever publications or whichever research paper was interesting to me. I would look at who is the professor that driving that research and so on. So
Okay.
that way I would shortlist professors. And so being an Indian, what I would do is like I look into each professor's group and see if there are any Indian students. So first I would approach those Indian students,
Okay.
maybe to so that maybe by looking at Indian name they would reply me back soon.
Priority.
And yeah, but I think that doesn't work. So maybe that's not a great idea. so, but nevertheless, I try to find like either the alumni of the labs or the current student in the lab. So I would try to reach out the students first, than professors. So I would just talk to students, and I always kept in mind that if I'm writing to students, then also I be completely professional and write email in such a way that I'm writing to a professor, so that students would value, or students would take a look at my emails and invest time and in replying me. Otherwise, if emails are not well written, maybe they would also ignore it completely. So I tried to do that, and by doing that, I realized that many groups where students were not really happy, they would outright say, they won't say don't come here, but they would say, why don't you look into some other places. So in a very indirect way, they would hint that maybe it's not a great culture. So that way I realized. And in some other groups, I had friends of friends of friends of friends who knew that group and so on. So that
Yeah.
was another way to kind of understanding like what's going on in places over there. Yeah.
So there's like two big tips for somebody looking for doing PhD in the coming future is first, try to establish contact with the current students or the alumni, and then at the professor as well. And so don't look at the brand as such, I believe.
I mean, that's my view that for PhD brand doesn't matter
Mhm.
unless you want to go for a software job. So
Uh,
if your motivation is to do PhD and then go into software developing job, maybe brand would matter. But apart from that, if you do good research, brand won't matter as much.
Okay, that's great. So, and then it also gives another tip for the students is that write professional emails. Don't be like, hey man, how are you doing? I'm kind of coming then have start talking in a way that you yeah, bro, I'm going to be there. What do you think about this place?
Right. So I mean, so yeah, that's very important to be honest. That's really important to keep in mind that even if you're writing to a student, so each PhD student typically will have their own website and so on. So go through their websites, do some little research. So all these things take really long time. It's not like you can do it in a month. It takes like 6 months or a year time to do only these things, right? So you have to have you have to invest a lot of time into these. And even when you are writing to students, be professional, try to relate to their research, why you are interested, why are you writing to them in first place. So motivation should not be that, okay, I want to join, answer my questions. No, motivation should be that I'm interested in your research, blah blah blah, these are the details of that research. It would be, I mean, great that if I would also be collaborate with you in future sometime or something like that. I mean, don't be that basically you get the idea, like be as professional as possible with even while writing to students as well.
Yeah, with the time limit, that was my next very question. How much time before should, if say somebody is looking to come or join next year, how much before should one start doing the research and start investing their time into hunting for professors and the proper group, getting a feedback? Because even feedback takes a lot of time. It's not an instant reply that you get. So, what is the buffer
Right,
one should keep?
at least 1.5 years for sure. So before joining, so typically joinings are in the summer, like after in August, but
Mhm.
forget about that. You can keep in mind May as a joining date, think of that as joining date. And then 1 year, 1.5 year before that, you should start doing all of this, because once you finalize all these things, then maybe you will get to know that there are some additional requirements like writing GRE and this and that. So those kind of stuff also takes a lot of time. So uh, yeah, so people generally have fairly good amount of idea, like if they want to go for PhD. So you would know, like when you want to go for PhD, it will require that much amount of time. It's not a thumb rule, but you should have that much time. Many people just decide and go out and they get a position, so that's also not a big deal. But if you're planning, if you are doing a job, you are already stable, I think this much time is required.
That's starting early is always beneficial. You have a lot of chance to kind of first select, then review the options, then re-review them in case if you
Right.
look something in the just
Yes.
process of finalizing them. And then after you kind of shortlisted the professor and the students, was it like just a simple interview for you, or did you have to like for my I'm a creative professional, so I had to like invest time into as well making a portfolio because that was my biggest selection criteria. So what was in your case, you being into data and all those things?
Right. So I want, so basically for PhD admission, I created a website specifically for me, highlighting like things that would that a professor would value. For example, contributions to open source, whether I started some open source code, because in PhD you do have to do a lot of coding. So
Mhm.
at least I highlight, okay, I have good coding background. Then
Mhm.
I would highlight like I have a couple of papers, published papers, and so on, and I mentored some people. So basically, I created a kind of portfolio, but for machine learning background people, right? So that portfolio is important. Other than that, one thing I was lucky and I could do was I could find people who would get me in touch with the professors.
Oh,
So while talking to these students, like one or two students were kind enough to just put me in touch with professors. So hey, meet Shubhranshu, he is a friend. They could refer to me as friend over email, and they would introduce me to their advisors. But that doesn't happen always. That happened with me in only two of the cases. I applied to 8 places in the end, and that happened in two of the places.
Okay.
So then, even before applying, those professors were chatting with me on Gmail. Hey, whatever, blah blah blah. And sometimes having to know someone will help at times,
Yes.
but it's not always necessary.
Yeah. I think it worked in our favor that you had the professors kind of showing an interest, and that also kind of makes you confident while applying that I have a guaranteed position. And then with that in mind, you could actually have concrete steps towards booking flight tickets, searching for accommodations, and move on to the next aspects, like the next big leaps that one needs to take.
Right. So one thing is, like, I can't say that talking to professors means that you will have a position.
Hmm.
I would just say that the professors were kind enough to at least talk to me once, just because their students introduced me to them. And so that helps in a sense that at least professor would have, like, Shubhranshu is the guy who has applied. So they will at least look at my application.
Yeah.
Even if I don't fulfill all the criteria, maybe they will still look at my profile, which is what a benefit that I think I had
That
just because of those introductions.
Yeah, this introduction definitely put your file above the other applications because you're kind of having a one-on-one conversation with the professor. So it helps you portraying your personality and what you are because just documents do not give some vibes unless you talk to somebody. Also, mails, the kind of words, the way you draft, talks a lot about the person's intention and how serious that person is.
Right.
So next, once you decided on the professors and the group and you're happy with that, next comes in place the big move. And the very first thing is packing. So did you
Yes.
pack your entire house or you were like, I just need 3 or 4 things and I'm done?
Yeah. So so since my destination was US, so I think packing depends on your financial position, to be honest, because in US, if you go to any, like, Pittsburgh is fairly small city, so even here, like, you will find anything that you would find in India. Even if you will find some stuff that I used to see only during my childhood, I find them here, and I won't find them in India. So I think you don't really need all those stuff like Indian things, but just to be on safe. So in my case, one thing that I packed was pressure cooker. I thought maybe I won't find it in US, but that's not true. You find it everywhere. And the other thing that I packed was, like, I tried to pack some ready to eat food for 2 days,
Okay.
2 to 3 days, because I was not sure what would be the position of kitchen.
Yeah.
But the good thing in US is, like, whatever house you move in, kitchen is ready for you. You can just start cooking if you want, which is what I did after one day. So I just needed a day to kind of
Settle in.
settle in, and that's it. So that's a great thing. Yeah.
And with the moving, how did you finalize the accommodation? Like, did you kind of stay with the people you were chatting on with, or did you book it online?
No, so I booked it online, and so I am married, and I came with my spouse here. So we were looking for our own house, and so I think it's fairly straightforward here. Like, by looking at basically various forums, I realized, okay, these are the neighborhoods that maybe mostly Indians or most grad students prefer.
Okay.
So I then started looking up various properties in those areas, and then they would give you virtual tour and so on, and then you can finalize and send money and book it. So that's fairly straightforward. Yeah.
Yeah, but with online, also there are people trying ready to scam you. So, what are your tips? One should be like kinds of heads up while booking online because you are not the president person. So it makes a lot easier for the other guy to kind of cheat on you. So, what would be your pointers or heads up?
Right. So one thing to note here is that So what I was trying to do, I also had that thing in mind. So I tried to go with known rental property managers.
Oh,
So in an area you will have, so here you will have rental property managers. So if you reach out to them,
mm-hmm.
then there is a very less chance of fraud. If they reach out to you, that could be a flag.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's always that you should initiate a conversation so that you know what person or what organization you are communicating with. So I just tried to look at property managers here, looked at their ratings, what the previous tenants are saying about them, and so on. And then I just decided to go ahead with that. And yeah, but at the back of mind, I had this, okay, so it is a possibility that 1 month of rent would be gone. So I also kept that in mind, like worst to worst case, that it could happen that even after doing all this, I may be defrauded and I would lose 1 month of basically rent. But thankfully, it didn't happen. So great.
So, once you decided on the property as well, the next question that I want you to answer is, it's about the culture shock or, being homesick. I know you are married, you moved in with your spouse, you had somebody who was giving you company through the time, but were you anytime homesick and missing back your home country?
Right. So yeah, I have stayed away from home since I was 17. But but like moving to a new country was a completely different experience. So I don't know whether it's culture shock. I won't call it culture shock, but it was eerily quiet. Right. I was not used to that much quietness before that. And which was like the first thing that I noticed when I entered here. And apart from that, I realized that like pedestrians were way too much respected while crossing the road. So that like on the first week, it felt really weird. And even when I'm in house, it felt awfully quiet. Right. So that was really jarring for a couple of, like, when you come from India, like you're used to that noise and suddenly it's so quiet. That was a little bit weird for me. And as long as homesickness and stuff, mostly uh, I would say like I miss the evening bazaars and charts and blah blah, those kind of things.
Good.
Beyond that, I think I'm pretty good here. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's the next question coming in. It's about the food as well as the people. Like, how easy is it? Like, you can just be walking on the footpath, as you mentioned, or standing for a bus, and then you could just strike a conversation with a stranger. How easy is it? Or is it a little difficult to break ice with somebody?
Right. So that I think you do in India also. I'm not sure whether everyone does, but at least I used to do. So here I felt like it's much more easy because even people initiate conversations. that, but here I think people are not really interested in conversation. They just say hello, how was your day, and blah, but not really expecting a written answer to that question. You know what I mean?
It's just
So it's just like, I think that's a way of life here that you say, hey, how are you?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a way of greeting, but people are not really interested in knowing. I believe, or at least I felt that. But in India, when I used to strike up conversation, we would just chat for hours with strangers as well.
Especially
So
it's like
yeah, I mean here, yeah, more cricket or politics or traffic, whatever. So yeah, like, but here it's here much more people will say hi, how are you, but they are not really interested in understanding or knowing whether I'm doing good, bad, or something like that. So yeah, I mean that's what I could say.
yeah. And how was the weather like when you moved in compared to India? Was it difficult for you in any sense, or were you like very used to it as soon as you landed there?
Yeah, so when I landed here, I think I liked the weather because it was similar to how Bangalore's weather is. But a couple of months later, I saw like say winter is approaching and it's raining, so that was like really weird.
Yeah.
And then it was awfully cold in the winter, so that was a first experience. Like temperatures would go to -20 and so on,
Mhm.
and I was like, what the hell? How is that given? I it's like that was a tough winter, but I think I survived. So now it's I'm used to, as well as there is global warming, so
Yeah,
winters are not that harsh now.
that's
So,
that's true.
so Yeah, I like the weather. Overall, I like the weather. I like winters, so I like the weather. Yeah.
So as you mentioned, it goes to like -20 and stuff. So is it advisable to somebody get like
Yes.
back from home, or they should buy there because certain type of clothes might be made at certain places for those weathers.
I think if you ask me, I would suggest that you should buy clothes once you get to the destination place,
Hmm?
or once you get here, because Indian clothes are not made for these kind of winters.
These ones over there.
Or maybe you will find them, but those are not that common, right? So you should. I mean, when you land here in August or September, it won't be that cold, so your Indian jackets would do well. But once you arrive here, you should go and buy for your winter. I believe that would work better.
Okay, okay. And now next comes in, after the accommodation is sorted, you are there, comes the transport networks. So how is the public transport there? Is it efficient or do you need a car to go everywhere?
So I can only talk about Pittsburgh. So in Pittsburgh, it's really well connected. Buses ply everywhere. So like I have a bus stop right outside my house that drops me right outside the university, and buses for CMU students are free. So that's pretty good. So anywhere in Pittsburgh, bus is free for me. So that's a great thing about staying in Pittsburgh.
That's it for the first part of this episode. Hope you guys found some value in it. If you found something interesting or some part, please make sure to like the video. It really helps in boosting my morale and as well as motivating me for doing such work in the future. Please do make sure to like it, subscribe to the channel, press the bell notification icon so that you get notified as soon as the next video is uploaded. Also, do not forget to follow me on both social handles, that is Instagram and Facebook. The ID is Student Insights Podcast. The same has been linked down in the description below. Please make sure to follow me there as well. And hope you guys like the first part of this episode. And the second part will be uploaded in the coming week. So please make sure you watch the first part if you watch the second. Otherwise, you will find yourself kind of being confused in the second part because that would be questions coming at the later stage of one's journey. So please make sure to watch the first part and like it, share it with your friends and family. If you think somebody might be benefit from it, please to spread the word. Would really appreciate that. And that's about it for this episode. I'll see you next week. Till then, stay safe, stay sound. Bye bye.